What should you be betting this NFL Divisional Round? What's going on, BLV football fans, degenerates out there, and gridiron gamblers? It's Mitch back here with another week of NFL playoff best bets. Taking a look at the 4 NFL Divisional Round matchups, the AFC, the NFC, and determining the best bet for each and every one of these games, sticking to the spread and the total. Which spread or total should you bet this weekend on each one of these playoff games? That's what I'm here to help you with and help you to determine to make some money this NFL playoffs. If that sounds good, don't forget to spike the like button and subscribe for weekly NFL best bets leading up all the way to the Super Bowl. Last week, we went 4-1 on our best bets, and you might be asking, Mitch, weren't the playoffs 6 wildcard matchups on wildcard weekend? Yes, you're right, but we had to void one of the bets because the Bills and Steelers game literally moved a day. So I wasn't going to keep a bet that I was talking about the weather on one day that completely changed to another day. But luckily, divisional round, we'll get all 4 bets in because I don't think any of these games are going to be changing dates. So with that being said, let me know in the comments your best bet for divisional round weekend, my favorite weekend of the NFL calendar. And let's kick it off with the first best bet of divisional round, which is the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud, my guy CJ Stroud, getting 9.5 points as a dog at Baltimore. Whenever you have potentially a special quarterback getting points in a playoff game, a substantial amount of points, more than a touchdown, against a quarterback and a team that is not very good at covering big spreads, which the Baltimore Ravens are not very good at covering big spreads, and specifically a team that still has questions about how do they perform in the playoffs? How does Lamar perform in the playoffs? He only has 1 playoff win. How does this incarnation of the Ravens handle pressure? Well, we haven't exactly seen that yet. And CJ Stroud and the Texans have been on a bit of a roll. They're dangerous. They've won 2 playoff games in a row. And you might be saying, whoa, wildcard weekend was last week. The Colts game counts as well. So the Colts, the Browns, they've defeated both. They comfortably annihilated the Cleveland Browns at home. Now they travel back on the road. And yeah, the Texans have not been as explosive on the road or as good on the road as they've been at home. But I like some of the things about this matchup. First of all, there's familiarity. And familiarity matters when it comes to January matchups to make games close because you've already seen the schemes on both sides. You've already had a feel for the players. Now, it was all the way back in week 1. That's why I think it's more beneficial for the Texans than the Ravens, because the Ravens were facing a team that nobody thought anything of, a rookie quarterback, a beat-up offensive line, a team with a bunch of new young players everywhere. The Texans, while they were facing a new scheme for Baltimore, and Baltimore wasn't at 100% the level that they are now, it's still Lamar, it's still, Isaiah Likely, Zay Flowers, it's still the defensive players that they offer in that game. So there's a lot of carryover. There wasn't any Mark Andrews. Marlon Humphrey, right, is not going to be playing in this game, which is another big reason I like the Texans. Because if the Texans are going to have success offensively, it's going to be through CJ Stroud making explosive plays with his arm, being decisive. And then Nico Collins, that's his number 1 threat. That's his number 1 option. And the Ravens don't have a corner that can go one-on-one with Nico Collins and take him out of the game if Marlon Humphrey is out, which he is out. So that is a huge loss for the Ravens in this game, in my opinion, because now they have to put more resources to stopping Nico Collins on those explosive crossers and all the things that the Texans do with their number 1 receiver. On top of that, we've seen the Texans from an offensive schematical perspective. Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, right? The Shanahan tree of offenses, which falls into the Texans. They are a Shanahan approach with Slowick being the play caller coming from the 49ers. We've seen those teams be able to run the ball on the Ravens pretty effectively. Williams and McCaffrey were 2 of the better outings running the football against the Ravens. And the Ravens do have, if they have a weakness on defense, it's the run game. So can Devin Singletary get it going? Now, the Texans have been an inefficient running offense, but they've been getting better as of late, and that could just keep them balanced enough to allow CJ Stroud to stay out of 3rd and long and dangerous situations where Mike McDonald's able to confuse him, throw different coverages and different blitz packages at him. I actually think the Texans will be able to run the ball better than people think here. And then the usage of that run game with the play action game allows the Texans to really get into a flow from a play calling standpoint. I think that helps them keep this game close. On the other side is where I really think the Texans are being slept on in this matchup. First of all, I went back, I watched that week 1 game. Lamar had one of his worst games of the season in that week 1 game, and a lot of Ravens fans will just say it was simply due to the new system. But I would look at the personnel of the Texans and say this is a fast front 7 that can track Lamar Jackson in open space. They've got a lot of really fast, instinctive safeties, Jimmy Ward, Jalen Petrie, linebackers like Perryman and Harris, and they've got Cashman. They're all fast. They can move. And the defensive line is really athletic, young, guys like Will Anderson. They're really good against the run. They're one of the best run teams in football, so they won't be overwhelmed by the Ravens' running game. And they play a lot of zone, which allows you to have eyes on the quarterback, so they're not going to really be kind of out of sorts in coverage against Lamar Jackson. If they were more of a man team, I'd be worried because Lamar can move, manipulate the front, and then just take off and run. But with eyes on the quarterback, they're going to be able to take away some of those passing lanes, the short passes, the explosive passes by keeping a top on the defense, and then also keeping Lamar from really creating dangerous runs. So I think the Ravens are going to have to be very meticulous, very detailed, very concise with their passing approach underneath passes. Not a lot of explosives, which they've killed the Dolphins on. They've killed a lot of teams down the stretch on, like downfield vertical concepts. I think that DeMeco Ryans is smart enough to understand to keep everything in front of him and make the Ravens really earn everything, which keeps the game close and extends long drives. We saw the Texans in the first matchup. It was actually 7-6 in the third quarter. It was very close, and they failed on one out of 4 fourth downs. They failed on 3 fourth downs, including 2 4th and 1s. So even that game, when the Texans were super inexperienced, first ever start for CJ Stroud, they were pretty competitive through 3 quarters. It really got away from them in the fourth quarter. But I look at this game, I just feel like fundamentally, Lamar and the Ravens coming off of a bye. Lamar and the Ravens as a favorite are not great. And then the Texans as an underdog have been kind of valuable and profitable all year. CJ Stroud just does not care in a playoff setting. He's going to make throws. He's going to make plays. He can backdoor you because of how explosive he is, how great he is. And I also just feel like they could keep pace in this game because if their defense plays the way I think they can actually make this one really interesting with their defensive head coach, DeMeco Ryans, leading the way with a strong game plan. So I think the Texans are generally just better than people think, and they will make this game a 1-score game against the heavily favored Baltimore Ravens. That's the first best bet of divisional weekend. The second best bet, moving to the nightcap, is the San Francisco 49ers minus 9.5 over the Packers. I equally would suggest the over in this game. Over 50.5 is also a look for me, but I officially am going with the Niners as the best bet. And it's because I'm not quite sure 100% what we're going to get from the matchup of the Niners defense taking on the Packers offense. I could see the Niners defense in a certain game script dominating this game, but I could also see Jordan Love continuing his phenomenal performance as of late. So it could go either way there, but I definitely know the Niners are going to score. And that makes me kind of feel really good about laying a 9.5. The Niners are also just really good at covering big numbers. They're the best team in the NFL at covering those numbers this year. They have the most covers and wins of double digits this season. They have 11 wins, I believe, with 10-plus point margins. They also are 4-0 in divisional round under Kyle Shanahan at home in the playoffs. That might not just include divisional round, but overall playoffs, Kyle Shanahan at home as a favorite is 4-0. and he covers all 4 games. So there's a track record that suggests Shanahan with the Niners at home are going to beat you up and beat you down. And we've seen this specifically happen to the Packers before in an NFC Championship game in 2019. Why that matters is because Matt LaFleur was the coach. So there is a little bit of history between these two, as well as the Niners going to Green Bay and upsetting them in a big way in the divisional round a couple years ago in 2021 when Jimmy Garoppolo couldn't even complete a pass. So generally, the Niners own Matt LaFleur and Kyle owns Matt LaFleur. Why is that? Because Kyle Shanahan is his daddy. Matt LaFleur is a disciple of Kyle Shanahan, and he runs his offense in very similar schemes on offense, which means that Kyle knows what he's going to do. He knows his plays. He knows how to stop those runs. He knows how to make it difficult in the passing game, and he can give that idea and the understanding of certain plays and certain concepts and certain tricks that Matt LaFleur may have against Dallas and be able to carry that to Steve Wilks on the defensive side of the ball and be like, when they do this, you do this. This is how we give this a hard time. And Kyle understands defense, I think, a lot better than a lot of people understand. So the big coaching mismatch here is really what I'm aiming at. I just feel like Kyle knows Matt LaFleur really well, which takes his advantage away from other games and other coaching, teams. And then you've got the defensive side of the ball where you have one of the worst defensive coordinators in the league, Joe Barry, who actually coached with Kyle Shanahan in 2002 in that era of the Bucs, right? 2004 with the Bucs. And Kyle knows his defense really well because they worked together in Tampa Bay when Kyle started in the NFL. And that's where he really learned under John Gruden and stuff. So I feel like Kyle's just unique understanding of the Packers defense and offense is going to give them an inherent advantage, and they already have the talent advantage. So there's all that goes into this. On top of that, it's just a bad Packer defense. They're very inconsistent in their run fits and their gaps up front, which I think McCaffrey and, again, Shanahan's going to be able to expose in the run game. And I could see McCaffrey having 150 yards in this game and going for explosive gains, very much like the 2019 NFC Championship. The Packers are like 28th against the run this year. And then through the air, they really only have one good corner, Alexander, and the rest of the defense is suspect. I think that the Niners have been the most explosive offense this year, the most consistent offense this year. They can run the ball, they can throw the ball, and when they have their game script, they just become unstoppable because they can run it, they can throw it, they can play action, they can screen, they can fake the reverse, throw the screen, they can do so many different layers of this offense. It just makes it impossible to stop. I think the Niners are going to score 30 plus in this game quite easily. I think they're going to score 34, 38 points if I'm being accurate here. And defensively, it's a matter of how does the game script go. I think the only way the Packers have a chance is if they get in front early. And I'm not sure that's going to happen with the atmosphere of the Niners crowd and the energy that the Niners are going to come out of the bye with. I really feel like this is not a team that will be rusty. In fact, when we've seen them play off of a bye this year or off of a week's rest, they've been their most dominant. And I think a lot of that has to do with the talent that they have and some of them being a little older, like Trent Williams and guys like that, where they can really benefit. Debo is always kind of beat up. With a benefit of rest, they're more explosive, faster, tougher, more physical, and they're a very physical team, which is why I'm not concerned about the Niners at all, mentally or physically. They're not the Dallas Cowboys. They will not be rattled if they go down early, and they will not be too confident or overconfident if they go up big early. They'll keep their foot on the gas because they've been there before and they've been successful in the playoffs. Many of these players have. I expect a good game from Brock Purdy. Very minimal turnover opportunities here for the Packers because of the run game of the Niners. And I think the defense of the Niners will take care of business because they'll be able to slow down the run of Aaron Jones, forcing Jordan Love to play real quarterback where he's not just hitting open receivers down the field off of play action. He's going to have to play in a drop back setting. That's where I think Nick Bosa and Chase Young and this defensive line of the Niners gets opportunities for sacks, for pressures, for stops. And I think it will just be overwhelming. The Niners are just ready for this moment. They are the best team in the NFC by margin. And I think they show that in this game on a Saturday night. So that's your second best bet, the Niners minus 9.5. The third best bet and the third game is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Detroit Lions. I actually like the under. This one was tricky because honestly, I couldn't decide on the spread. I couldn't decide whether I wanted to go Tampa Bay plus 6.5, Detroit minus 6.5. My official pick on my pick show for straight up and versus the spread was Detroit. I slightly leaned towards Detroit because I could very easily see them winning by 7. But I could also see this game being very close. I could even say Tampa Bay winning. But the only way Tampa Bay wins, the only way this game's competitive, is if Tampa's defense shows up. And the way that I really see this game is similarly to the way that the first game went. Remember, these two teams have played, and the score was 20-6. So just because the venue changed, it doesn't really make a lot of sense that both of these teams are going to put up now all of a sudden 49, 48 points. Like, to me, it doesn't make sense. They put up 26 in the first game, right? And that was, yeah, the Lions were missing Jahmyr Gibbs, but like that's not enough for me to really say, oh yeah, all of a sudden the Lions are going to put up 30. Like, I look at this game and I don't think either team will be able to run the ball. And I feel like both teams need to be able to run the ball to have their best success offensively, especially the Lions. The Lions are a run-first team. As much as we love Jared Goff and Amon-Ra and Laporta, who's also beat up, I think they've added something with Reynolds and Jamison Williams exploding down the field. They've got a very good O-line. Those things are great, but Tampa Bay is a great run-stuffing team. They did that in the first game, which made it interesting in the first matchup in Tampa Bay, and I think they'll do it again. We saw them show up against the Eagles in that facet, and I think they'll do it again. Todd Bowles is just traditionally very good against the run. His defense kind of sells out to stop the run, and that's the way you want to play the Lions. You want to make them be a drop-back team. You want to be able to put Goff in the gun and make him spread it out and shred you. And that's where they get in trouble a little bit more. When their power game and their play-action game is not intersynced and synced up throughout the course of a game, Goff struggles more to make those plays. So he's really good at making powerful, explosive throws over the middle of the field. But with Antoine Winfield in the middle of the field, Levante David in the middle of the field, and then on top of that, a strong run defense with size, power. It just feels like the Lions won't be able to push around Vita Vea. They're not going to be able to push around Shaq Barrett. And if they do, there's a fast, explosive Devin White coming to tackle the ball carrier. So I just don't think the Lions are going to be able to run the ball. And I think most of their success in the pass game will come from the slot in Amon-Ra St. Brown, where I feel like he'll be catching a lot of passes, but it won't be for like 25, 30-yard gains. It's going to be slow, decisive, because the Bucs are going to send the blitz, and Goff often has struggled against the blitz. He often has turned it over against the blitz. He often just is inconsistent, up and down. Sometimes he'll hit an explosive play. Sometimes he'll just get it out quick and he'll miss a target every once in a while. He's very stagnant in the pocket. He can't really create like a Mahomes or an Allen or a Lamar where he can extend and then create a big play down the field. It's very stagnant in the pocket. He's looking for a throw. And meanwhile, it's rather a short gain or not much else, considering the Bucs are a very good tackling team. So I think the way the Bucs defense matches up with the Lions is pretty darn good. I don't think the Lions are going to be able to just drop back and pass against them, and I don't think they're going to get their run game going, which takes away the way they want to play and forces them to play left-handed. On the other side of the football, I think that the Bucs will struggle to run the ball because the Lions are very good against the run, especially at home. And I think just relying on Baker Mayfield to put up 28 points or to put up 24, even above 21, is just asking a lot. Even with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and the mismatches that they have with the Lions secondary, I fully understand that. The Lions held this team to 6 in the first game. And I don't think that was really a fluke. Like, I think that they missed a couple of big plays the Bucs did down the field that they could have benefited from. But if you're just asking Baker in a playoff game, on the road, in a hostile environment, with an offensive line that has to deal with all the noise and the checks and the balances of dealing with the blitzing Lions team that they've become, and you're asking Baker Mayfield, not Tom Brady, to deliver a 30, 25-yard consistent throw, it's just going to be inconsistent. They might hit a couple of them, but it's just not going to be there all day. And Tampa Bay is not really a very calculated passing game. It's a lot, again, based like Detroit, where it's run, play action, or it's drop back and look down the field vertical for like a 25-yard in route or an out route to Mike Evans, or like a slant to Chris Godwin. And I do think that the Lions are going to be able to put a cap on this team, especially in the red zone, where they've been very good on defense as of late. We saw them shut down the Rams in the red zone, and they were a far superior red zone offense than this Bucs team. So even if the Bucs hit, they're going to have to hit and score before they get inside that 20-yard line, because the Lions have shown a great capacity to stop teams in the red zone, and it's because their run defense is so good that it takes away one element of the game for the offense to score. And with Baker not being a Lamar or an Allen running the ball, you can't really use the quarterback as a mover either. So I like the under here. I just feel like both defenses match up fairly well. And although there are flaws with both defenses, especially in the secondary and coverage, I just don't think the way that both offenses play will be able to fully take advantage of the defenses on the other side. And the final best bet of divisional round weekend is the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Buffalo Bills, under 45.5. I like the under here a lot. This game was low scoring in the first matchup. I think it will be low scoring once again here in Buffalo. It's going to be cold. So first and foremost, explosiveness, quick twitch. You're a little slower. You're a little just less off that line of scrimmage. It helps defense. The cold, the bitter cold. And I do feel like both offenses just have moments where they're out of rhythm, out of sync, and too quarterback reliant. Their receiving cores are very inconsistent. Their offensive lines can be inconsistent. The Bills against the blitz especially have moments where they allow too many pressures where Spags can pick that apart. I felt like he did that in the second half of the first matchup. And then the Chiefs just at the tackle position where the Bills are going to be able to rush for and get around the edge against Mahomes and cause some sacks and some pressures, on top of having a very good interior defensive line led by Ed Oliver, who's playing great football. The Bills do have some defensive injuries right now, but I expect them to have Rasul Douglas, Teron Johnson, who are two key pieces to the cornerback group, and I do think Dodson at linebacker will play, and they do have their full defensive line, which I think is what matters the most here, is the ability to just rush for and get to Mahomes without having to resort to blitzing, which I think does matter. But I think the Bills will be able to flirt with blitzing if they have Rasul Douglas out there to match up with Rice, just because the Chiefs don't have great receivers that can separate down the field. We saw Vic Fangio have some success blitzing Mahomes. It was maybe a little bit too frequent that they were blitzing, but there were moments that they were able to get off the field because of it. So I think the Bills will be able to play more man coverage than they've been able to play in the past against this team. I think they're going to be able to blitz a little bit more than they've been able to in the past. And I think that that's going to help them stop the Chiefs in the playoffs, which they haven't been able to do in past matchups. On the other side, I just think that the Bills' passing offense is it's not a good matchup for the Chiefs because the Bills' receivers, really, other than Stephon Diggs, struggle to separate against man. And I think that with L'Jarius Sneed being one of the best corners in football, he's going to be able to hold his own against Stephon Diggs. So really, Allen's going to have to run. He's going to have to check it down to the back. He's going to have to find his tight ends. And those are less explosive ways of getting the ball down the field because with Gabe Davis out, or potentially out, that could take an X factor away from this matchup. But you've got guys like Shakir and Hardy, and these guys aren't great. And you're going against McDuffie and a pretty good secondary and the Chiefs, who's a top 3 defense this year overall. The Bills, I think their way and their approach is to run the football, which I think that is their best approach to win this game, which I agree with. They should be able to run the ball, but again, that leads to an under, especially a 45.5. I think they're going to try to run it, try to milk the clock, try to pace the game their way, and get the crowd involved defensively. And then I don't think the Chiefs are really going to be able to run the ball all that well against the Bills. A really strong run defense, especially as of late. And the Chiefs aren't an overwhelming running football team. I think that the best approach for the Chiefs will be short passes. So it's going to be a lot of long drives. And then once we get to the red zone, the Bills are a lot better because Allen can kind of add that power element and they're a better running team. And I feel like Kansas City is going to struggle to run it. And I don't think they're really going to have a lot in the red zone where they've really struggled as of late. So that also gives me confidence that the Bills are going to force Butker to make a lot of field goals, which is going to lead to a lower score. So I think maybe the Chiefs offense will be a bit more consistent moving the ball, but won't score sevens, while the Bills will probably get in the end zone, but might not move the ball as consistently due to kind of the scattered brain part of their offense on top of Josh Allen and then just being the fact that the Chiefs have a very good defense. So all of that together leads me to believe that this is going to be like a 23-20, 20-17, 24-20, 24-21 at the most type of game. Like, I don't see either of these teams getting to 27, 28, 30. Just don't see that happening with the way these defenses are playing, being the strengths of their teams really right now, as long as the Bills are mostly healthy entering this game. Definitely check the injury report, but I think we should be okay there. So those are the best bets of divisional round weekend. Hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown. If you did, Gronk spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe for weekly NFL best bets and NFL content just like this. It's Mitch. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to tune into the live streams. I'll be live for each one of these games, and I'll see ya then. Peace.